Today we are talking about a question I get from so many students, and that is, should I be taking digital notes or paper notes? If you are regularly taking notes in class, even if it's on a napkin, trust me, you are so far ahead of students who aren't taking notes at all. If you are not in the regular practice of taking notes in class and you are here watching this video to figure out if paper notes or digital notes are better, then I applaud you for being here and I hope you find this video helpful. If you do, don't forget to give it a like and make sure you're subscribed. All right, in this video, we're going to talk about the pros and cons of each note-taking method so that you can decide which one is right for you. Now also, this is not a one and done decision, all right? So you may, after this video, decide that taking notes on paper is best for you or taking digital notes is best for you, but you are allowed to change your decision based on your scenario, based on the class, based on moving ahead in your academic journey. You are allowed to change your mind. We have a lot to talk about, so let's dive in. Hi, I'm Katie Azevedo, SchoolHabits.com. I've been a teacher for nearly 20 years. I have a master's degree in special education, and I have taught thousands of students to learn and work smarter. And part of learning and working smarter involves developing a note-taking system that is dependable, frictionless, and useful. Now let me be upfront. I almost always recommend handwriting notes versus typing notes. It is not that I'm against digital notes. That's not true at all. There are situations in which typing your notes makes sense, particularly if someone is physically unable to mechanically write out their notes. 100% then you're gonna be typing them. But when it comes to comprehension, handwriting notes absolutely has the upper hand. Does that sound weird? Handwriting? I'm gonna leave that one in. Just to prove that I am not against digital notes, well, hey, there's this video right here in which I'm helping you decide for yourself whether you're gonna handwrite them or use digital or paper notes. But I also have an entire tutorial about best practices for digital notes, and I will leave that in the description box. Now hold up. Before we get to the tips, it is really important that I clarify what I mean by digital notes. This could mean typing your notes into something like Google Docs or Word. It could also mean handwriting your notes digitally using a stylus or an Apple Pencil. Okay, for the sake of this discussion, we're talking about both, but those really are two different approaches to digital note-taking, and I just wanted that to be clear up front. And also, just to be clear, unless there is a specific issue like a fine motor deficit, then handwriting notes, whether it's with a pen and paper or with a stylus and a note-taking app, it's going to yield better comprehension than typing them. Now, one more thing, let Katie get to the tips. Hold on, this stuff is really important. As you consider the pros and cons of paper versus digital notes, which we're gonna talk about, I need you to keep this very important fact in mind. The entire point of taking notes in the first place is, well, two reasons: to help you understand what you're learning, like what you're taking notes on, and to create a resource that will be valuable to you in the future. So when you are choosing a note-taking method, how effective that method is in helping you learn the material far outweighs how convenient that method is. I hope that point that I'm making really lands, because a lot of times we choose a note-taking method that's just fast and super easy, but it does nothing for our comprehension and it does nothing for the future purpose that we're going to be using those notes for. All right, so we're going to start with digital notes. There's definitely a time and a place for digital notes, and they certainly have their advantages. The first advantage of taking digital notes is that you can access them from anywhere. This is an obvious benefit. You can access your notes from pretty much any device, wherever you are. There's no more "I forgot my notebook" nonsense. The second benefit, you obviously have unlimited storage. You'll never run out of pages or space. The third benefit, they're neat and they're editable. Digital notes are clean. It's easy to revise them later by adding or deleting if you need to. You can move things around, right? Super easy. And then lastly, it's really easy to insert images. If you need to add a diagram or a screenshot or a picture, digital notes make that super simple. Sounds pretty good, right? But that is not the full picture, because there are absolutely some cons to digital notes that I need you to consider too. Number 1, they're faster. Hold up, this is not necessarily a good thing. Typing is usually faster than writing by hand, but that's not always good because when we type quickly, we often don't process the information deeply enough, which can reduce our comprehension. In other words, we're typing words quickly, but we're not understanding what we're writing, and that defeats the entire point of taking notes. But when we write notes by hand, you don't have time to write down everything, which forces you to distill the information into only the most essential. And to do this, we have to think about the material, and that increases our comprehension of it. Another negative, there's no spatial memory. So when we take notes on paper, our brain will remember the layout, where something is on a page, and we lose that with digital notes. You might be familiar with the scenario if you've ever flipped through the paper notes in your notebook looking for something specific that you remember is maybe in the top left corner, for example. If you're taking digital notes, you miss out on this spatial memory. Number 3, it leads to too much information. Because typing is faster, it's easier to take too many notes. This can make it harder to distill the key information you actually need to study. Our notes is supposed to be a collection of the most important material, not the entire textbook, not the entire lecture, right? It's like a funnel. The textbook or the lecture is at the top of the funnel with all of the information, and then your notes are the most essential. And then what you study for the test, that's even more distilled. Number 4, there's less brain engagement. Studies show that writing by hand activates more areas of the brain. Typing does not stimulate these same areas, which can affect how well we remember the material. I'm going to share a quote here from a study done in 2023. I'm going to link the full study below, but the authors report that whenever handwriting movements are included as a learning strategy, more of the brain gets stimulated, resulting in the formation of more complex neural network connectivity. Like, whoa, right? They also conclude that it appears that the movements related to typewriting do not activate these connectivity networks the same way that handwriting does. And number 5, limited creative freedom. So typing or notes does not allow for the same creative flexibility you have with paper, like drawing arrows or making sketches that help with understanding. Taking notes should be a creative process as much as it's an intellectual process. Our notes should be filled with arrows and side notes and connections that we make between concepts. And when we type our notes, we're losing the option to add these creative elements. That is not ideal because additions like arrows and graphics can improve our comprehension and memory of the material. Now let's move on to the pros and cons of paper notes. So just like we started with the pros for digital notes, let's start with the pros for taking notes by hand. The first benefit, better comprehension. And like hands down right here, I could just like drop the mic and walk away because if the entire point of taking notes is better comprehension, and this is the benefit of taking notes by hand, then that's a clear winner, right? But hold on, I have to let you make your own decision. Writing by hand forces us to slow down and process the material, which improves our understanding. We also went over this already, but you're engaging more parts of the brain when you're kinesthetically and mechanically writing out words, whether that's with a pen or with a stylus. Number 2, spatial memory advantage. With paper or notes, your brain can use the spatial memory to help you recall information. You're also creating notes that are easy to flip through as you search for the information that you recall being in a certain placement on the page. Number 3, it allows for creative connections. You're going to have more freedom to add visual elements like arrows, diagrams, or notes in them, things that can help with comprehension. And number 4, you're going to end up with higher quality notes. Because you're writing slower, you cannot write everything down. This forces you to prioritize the most important points. In other words, you're going to have only the good stuff written down. Now, digital notes definitely have their advantages, right? Like unlimited storage, being available anywhere, they're super neat and tidy, but it is important to remember that mastering note-taking or developing a note-taking system that works for you has to be about more than just convenience. If you want to learn more note-taking techniques, I cover all of this inside my program, SchoolHabits University. That is my online study skills course where I teach all the deeper techniques that can level up your note-taking and study skills. The link to SchoolHabitsUniversity.com will be linked below. But what we just went over were all the benefits to taking notes on paper. But if I'm being fair, all right, which I have to be fair, my whole goal is to give you information so you can make your own decisions. There are some drawbacks to taking notes on paper as well. But with that said, there's really only 2. Number 1, there's limited access. So when you take notes on paper, you can obviously only access those notes on the paper. If you forget to bring your notebook to class or to your study session across campus, is, you're out of luck. Number 2, it can be difficult for people with physical limitations. Taking notes on paper is not always feasible for people with fine motor deficits, physical impairments, dysgraphia, or other exceptionalities. And if this is you, then taking digital notes is most definitely your best option. All right, so the ultimate question remains, should you be taking digital notes or paper notes? Ultimately, that is up to you. But remember, the entire point of taking notes in the first place is to increase your comprehension of the material and to help you create a resource that will be valuable to you in the future. It is not about how fast you can take your notes or about how neat you can make them. Now, you may have noticed that nowhere in my list of cons for taking paper notes did I say that they are slower. And that's not because they aren't slower. They certainly are, but that's not considered a con. If you think about the entire point of taking notes, if you truly want the best learning experience, then taking notes by hand, whether that is with a pen and notebook or a stylus in a note-taking app, is surely the way to go. If you found this video helpful, please make sure you like it, make sure that you're subscribed, leave a comment, leave a question in the comments section. I love to answer questions. And as always, thank you so much for watching.